Elvis and Prescilla. To the world, it seemed like a love story pulled right from the pages of a fairy tale. A love story only imaginable in a dream.
You couldn't have had a more perfect couple than Elvis and Priscilla Presley.
It looked like he was marrying a mirror image of himself.
He said it's like almost everything I've ever looked for in a woman.
But every fairy tale has a dark side, and every dream can become a nightmare.
He expected her to, be locked up within the gates of Graceland while he went out and cavorted around the world.
When she sort of became independent and fell in love with someone else, it killed him.
He wanted this guy dead. At one time, he wanted him dead. He tried to convince me to kill him, and he told Red to get a hitman to kill him when I wouldn't go do it.
Well, it's the one for the money.
At the height of Elvis Presley's young career, he was drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Germany. His family, his films, and his music were thousands of miles away. Just as it had at the beginning of his career, his life changed before his very eyes. But Elvis would see one more change before he was out of the Army, a change that would affect the rest of his life. Just a few towns over from where he was stationed, 14-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu and her family had just moved in.
Elvis first met Priscilla in Germany. She was stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany. Her father, Colonel Beaulieu, who was Major Beaulieu at that time, was there with his family, and Priscilla was there. Curry Grant, his name was Curry, not Cary Grant. Curry Grant was this. He was in the Air Force, and Curry knew Priscilla from the base. And he told Elvis he wanted to bring this young lady to meet him. So one evening, I happened to be there. Curry brings in Priscilla, beautiful, dark-haired young lady in this like little sailor dress. I mean, she was shocked when she walked in the door. This house with all of these men, just a couple of girls. Well, anybody, when you first time to meet Elvis Presley, is in awe anyhow of him, so it's understandable.
He went over and said, "Hello, I'm Elvis Presley." I swear, that's what he'd do when somebody new came in. You know, he was always friendly.
They talked a little bit, and he took her to the side, and they sat down and visited the two of them for a little while. And, we sort of left them alone because, she had to be nervous. I mean, none of us knew she was 14 years old at the time because she looked maybe 16.
That first meeting with Priscilla was something else. Like I said, he was just enraptured. And when she left that evening, that's was over there, he looked at me and he said, "Charlie, did you see the structure of her face?" He said, "It's like almost everything I've ever looked for in a woman."
Curry took her home that evening and asked Elvis would he like to see her again, and they communicated back and forth, yeah, and she'd come over and visit once in a while. Somebody would go down and pick her up and bring her back and visit and hang out, go to movies.
Her father allowed as long as she was brought over there at a certain time and brought home by a certain time.
I believe that Priscilla Beaulieu came along at a very important period in Elvis Presley's life. His mother had recently died. There's a huge hole in his life and a hole in his heart. And along comes this beautiful young woman and who does bear a bit of a resemblance to the young Gladys Presley. I don't think there's any question about that.
Elvis Priscilla spent a lot of time after he met her in Germany. I mean, not all the time because he was still in the Army, and during the week it was tough. On weekends, she would come over, hang out with Elvis, and the two of them would spend a lot of time alone. So it was, in the Army days, it was getting to know her, more or less, getting to understand her. And like I say, she was only 14. So what went on between the two of them alone together, I don't know, because I wasn't there at the time. But they got to know each other a little better.
By March of 1960, Elvis's Army days were over. As he prepared for his return to the United States, Priscilla begged Elvis to consummate their love the night before he left, but Elvis declined, saying, "Someday we will, Priscilla, but not now." He gave her his sergeant's stripes and combat jacket to fill his absence.
They did not have real sex until their honeymoon night. And I would believe that. Elvis was an old-fashioned type of guy. He didn't believe in that before he got married. And that's my story from the other half. Elvis, I never asked Elvis that, but that's what Priscilla told me, and I believe it.
The day Elvis left Germany, reporters caught Priscilla's emotional farewell to the king, sparking rumors that shot back to the States before Elvis even arrived. No one was more surprised by the rumors than Anita Wood, Elvis's girlfriend in Memphis.
I had read a little bit about Priscilla in the papers, and he assured me that this was a child, a 14-year-old child that was the daughter of an Army officer.
Anita saw the article in the paper about Priscilla saying goodbye to Elvis as he left, and naturally she asked him about it. And he said, "Oh no, just a young lady that I knew over there," and he sort of, got away from it.
Elvis tried his best to quiet the gossip about his personal affairs in Germany, but it did little good.
There have been a lot of rumors about your love life. Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
Not any special one. There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there that her father was in the Air Force, and actually they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left. And there was some pictures made of her, but it was no big romance. I mean, the stories came out, the girl he left behind, and all that. It wasn't like that. I mean, I had to be careful when I answer a question like that.
He missed Priscilla. I mean, he really did, and I think that's when they talked back and forth from Germany and Memphis, and I think it's like anything, when you're away from somebody, you miss them more when you see them all the time.
Elvis secretly began planning his future with Priscilla while continuing to date Anita Wood. It wasn't until Anita found a letter from Priscilla that she realized the innocent teenage crush was actually a full-fledged love affair.
In the letter it said, "Please call my dad. I want to come over there, and if you call my dad, I know he will let me come. He will listen to you. I miss you. I want to come bad." Just kept on like that, So when he came in, I said, "What is this letter? Who is this? This Priscilla? You said she was just a child." I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to talk. But he kept calling, and I remember when he got me on the phone, "Little, please don't tell anybody about this." He said, "This girl, she's a 14-year-old child. It means absolutely nothing." Oh boy. And she just wants to visit. It means nothing. And if you told anybody, I'd get in a lot of trouble. She's so young.
In 1962, nearly 2 years after Elvis left Germany, Priscilla finally got her chance to see the king again. After producing a daily itinerary and a first-class ticket, Priscilla's parents approved a 2-week visit to stay with Elvis over Christmas.
He was going with Anita actually when I first met him. But she was in Memphis, and he was in California. And Priscilla came over, and I was there, and she came in, and Elvis asked me to take her upstairs and help her, show her the bathroom, help her fix her hair and stuff.
The women he was with over the years, he was really a one-woman man. Because there was Anita Wood, and then he wanted Priscilla coming over there, and when that started happening, when Anita was out and nobody else.
This young man brought this wonderful girl that he really loved in from overseas, and we went to the party he had up at his home in Bel Air, and all the gang was there and all the rock and rollers and everything like that, but he was so respectful of her. He says, "No, I don't want you staying here with me." He said, "I would like to have you go with my dear friends Shirley and George Barris and stay with him when you're here in town, and when I get ready to go for dinner and things like that, I'll come over and pick you up with the limousine." And that's just what he did. He was that kind of a person. He was truly thoughtful and considerate of the people and people around him, and mostly of Priscilla, that she was in good care.
Elvis had all of the girls that used to hang out at the house, the regulars, and they would sit down in the den, and he said, look, I met this little girl in Germany, and I'm bringing her over here, and I'm really serious, and the parties are going to stop. And the parties did stop, actually.
After a slew of late-night social bashes, a near overdose from Elvis's sleeping pills, and then a drunken New Year's Eve party, 16-year-old Prescilla returned to Germany more in love with Elvis than ever. They still had not made love by any traditional standard, and Prescilla began to suspect that Elvis was not as faithful as he insisted.
Elvis was still seeing other ladies too at the time, okay? Elvis, as we all know, loved women, to be around women, his companionship, not necessarily just for sexual things or anything like that, just he loved being around women.
He liked a certain kind of a girl, and in a lot of ways we were alike. We were both kind of quiet and demure, sort of, in a way, back then. I'm not now, I'm a big mouth, I talk a lot. But I was very quiet then and kind of shy, and he liked that. And we were about the same age, and we were built kind of the same. And he said some things earlier on, when Prescilla was in Germany. He said some things to my mom in regards to, you know, the wanting me to move in, and he said some things that leads you to believe. I mean, he didn't want me to go to college because he didn't want a girl to be smarter than him. But ultimately, Prescilla was cuter and she got him, so what can I tell you?
Elvis and Prescilla maintained their relationship over the phone for several months until Elvis realized he could no longer live without her. He called Priscilla's parents and begged them to let her move to Memphis under his guidance. They reluctantly agreed.
She was still very young, and so the deal was that she would stay with Elvis's parents, and he would see that she went to school, which she did. She got a good education. And I don't believe he ever touched her till they were married.
When she first came to Graceland, and she was living with Elvis's father and stepmother, she didn't come in and move right into Graceland. But as time went on, little by little, she started moving her stuff in there. But it was try to keep down, not make a big thing out of it, because she was young. And little by little, you know, they were seen together, they traveled together, we did things together, and it was fine.
We had such wonderful times there, going to the theaters, go to the amusement park. I mean, it was all late at night, but he had no choice, he had no other choice to enjoy life but to do it with his intimate friends. And we used to have these great New Year's parties that were so fun, New Year's Eve parties. Yeah, we'd all go down, and then Elvis and Prescilla would come down to the club, you know, and celebrate with us.
I was at Graceland for a couple of days, and I walked in, and I think Prescilla opened the door, and her hair was light brown, I believe, and up in a bun or something. And I just had never seen anybody that gorgeous. She just was absolutely stunning.
I don't know, I figured when she moved in there that that's a pretty good anchor. You know, that's kind of like staking your territory and laying your claim.
Prescilla eventually graduated from Immaculate Conception, a Catholic all-girls school, and her relationship with Elvis grew into more of an adult love. They attempted to lead a normal life between his films, but dating Elvis proved anything but normal.
Elvis used to rent the theater to see movies that he wanted to see. So he says, Bill, we're going down, you know, to see some movies. I said, well, cool. And so we get out to the limousine. He says, Bill, you get in the back. I said, oh, well, okay. And Elvis and Prescilla got in the front. And we drove out down to the front gate. And there was like, I don't know, 75, 150 people. They see that limousine come, they start screaming, and everybody looked in the back, thinking Elvis is going to be in the back. And it's me, and then I'm waving it. And nobody looked in the front. And we just drove right off to the theater.
Well, we had some great stories about Elvis. All the gang got together, Chief and Joe and all, and they said, well, this is Christmas time. Elvis said, well, what can I give to my guys for Christmas? And they all said, well, let's vote on all having Eldorado convertibles. So here I am out there searching for about 7 or 8 Eldorado convertibles, and then I had to ask everybody, well, what color do you want? You want red, you want green, you want blue? And well, Prescilla was, she got into the groove. She liked pink. So the motorcycle we created for her was a pink with pearl and different pinstriping and her initials in the right way, and same way with her cars. So she got involved with the car action and motorcycles with him just as much to show you how much she appreciated being a part of his life too.
Prescilla and I used to go horseback riding in Memphis. We'd go to the stables and rent horses with, you know, some of her friends. A bunch of us would go down and rent horses, and so we had a common bond there where we loved horses.
You know, that whole thing started, it was around Christmas time, and he said he wanted to get Prescilla a horse for Christmas, and would I mind if he bought Sandy a horse and they could ride together? And I said, no, man, she'd love it. So he said, okay, let's go out and look for horses.
He bought Prescilla a horse and myself a horse and had it waiting outside, you know, the back gate of the pasture. And he said, I have a surprise for you. And he had Scylla's Domino. She named him Domino. And then my horse. And because of those 2 horses, it started his love and his desire to get horses for everybody. I mean, it started something that was just incredible. It went from Graceland with 2 horses.
And then he and I got one, and that was the first 4 horses. And then, of course, we wound up with 37 horses and a ranch. It was a real great camaraderie type of thing, you know, just not just to ride the horses, but even though it was in the back of Graceland, it seemed like another world. And nailing up, you know, he had everybody's name on their stall and the horse's name.
He said, Daddy's. He didn't say Vernon's, but Daddy's. Priscilla's, mine.
We used to come to Hawaii and stayed in Kailua at a house that he rented. It was a dead-end street, and Elvis rented the house right at the dead end of that street. But being in Hawaii with everybody, we just hung out at the beach. We didn't do much of anything except stay there, enjoy the beach and the swimming pool, and I don't believe we really ventured out much to go sightseeing. We just hung out on Kalaka Street. That's what it was. Prescilla and I were real good friends. We spent a lot of time together. I mean, she was a sweetheart, and I really believe that she and Elvis were made for one another. Yeah, they had a special relationship.
Elvis styled Priscilla's hair the way he wanted, dressed her in the colors and clothes he chose, and even did her makeup the way he liked. She became Elvis's doll for him to show off by his side. She started tagging along with him when he went to Los Angeles to begin a new film, partly out of loneliness, and partly to keep an eye on him around certain female co-stars about whom rumors began to arise.
Before they start a motion picture in Hollywood, usually the stars meet and they go over a few things, and they do the wardrobe test, and they do the still picture test. And at that meeting, Elvis and Ann Margaret became very friendly, but while they were making the movie Viva Las Vegas, they were very, very close, if you know what I mean.
It was Viva Las Vegas with Ann Margaret, and boy, what a hot pair. And I said to Elvis one morning, in fact, at the Sahara Hotel, I used to go up to his room, make him up. And I said, that's a match for you. And I don't know what I should say this or that. He said, well, he says, wait till you meet Prescilla.
Viva Elvis!
He told me, he said, you know why I stopped going to Van? I said, no, why? He said, because I knew I was going to marry Prescilla. So he broke it off himself. You see, he was beginning to feel things for her, and like I said, he knew he was going to marry Priscilla, so he just broke it off before he could go any farther.
Elvis's film career and record sales began slipping during the mid-60s. Poor reviews coupled with turning 30 caused Elvis to start doubting himself, questioning the very talent that had brought him this far. His arguments with Prescilla grew more heated as a result. He even helped her pack once when she threatened to leave. Prescilla's parents began urging him to finally marry their daughter, as if to complete some contract.
I think that came more or less from Priscilla's parents, saying, hey, you know, we're with you long enough, it's time to get married. And Elvis had no bones about that, and he was very happy to.
Elvis told me on the set of Speedway he and Prescilla were going to get married, and I said, oh man, don't tell me no secrets. And I laughed, you know, it was a joke, but I said, don't tell me any secrets. You know, if it gets out, you know, it could be me, you think, or somebody thinks. I said, so don't tell me no secrets. So we finished the day's work, and I'm on the San Diego freeway, and I'm going home. It's about 6:15. It comes on the radio, the announcement that Elvis and Prescilla are going to get married pretty soon. And one thing and another, I said, oh, Jesus, don't tell me. But it was all right, because Colonel Parker had called a press conference.
It was official. Elvis, at 32 years of age, would take Prescilla, now 21, to be his wife in a private ceremony on March 1st, 1967, at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas. So private, in fact, that most of the Memphis Mafia were excluded.
By Friday, I guess we were told, on Saturday, a car will pick you up at your home at a certain hour, and the car picks us up, takes us to the airport, and only when we get to the airport and are given tickets do we know we're going to Las Vegas. And one of the other young people around said, oh, you know, I just have a feeling Elvis is getting married. Then I said, oh no, no way. So we got there, we went to the back entrance of the Aladdin. At that point, I did not know there were hundreds of press inside, you know, camping out on the floors because word had gotten out.
I knew about it because I was driving the Colonel to Palm Springs. And a lot of the guys thought I was going to Palm Springs, and we really were going to Vegas. The Colonel set that up at the Aladdin Hotel. They'd set up one room to be it, and it was just room enough for the immediate families, and Joe and Marty as best men.
They weren't allowed to come into the ceremony itself because the apartment was not big enough, and some of them were very much offended that they couldn't come into the ceremony.
Actually, I was a drop-in guest. My ex-wife and I were in Vegas, and we saw the Colonel the night before, and he said, come on over to the Aladdin tomorrow, we're having a bash. Elvis is getting married. But the astounding thing that I remember about the wedding was that many of the people that were there had never really seen Prescilla in person. And when she entered, came down the aisle, and she turned toward Elvis, she lifted her veil, and they were both side view of the two looking at each other. And what was amazing was that they looked exactly alike. It looked like he was marrying a mirror image of himself.
I sometimes look at that picture of her for their wedding and think, man, she looks like Elvira. She's got the eye thing going on there, and you know, the black makeup on the eyes and the hair, and I think I'm turning into her.
Such a beautiful, beautiful couple. They were just stunning. When they walked in, I mean, everything stopped.
I thought Priscilla Presley was perfect for Elvis. I thought Priscilla Presley was the most gorgeous thing in the world at that time. I just thought they made a beautiful couple. You couldn't have had a more perfect couple than Elvis and Priscilla Presley.
There were hundreds and hundreds of photographers and correspondents camped out, and they were having the wedding reception. Only a handful of people went to the wedding, but there were 200 people or something invited to the reception, the RCA people and the William Morris agency people and the MGM people and the Paramount people. And finally the Colonel went out of those doors into the lobby where all these press people were coming, and he said, you know, if you're willing to leave your cameras and your notebooks, your pads and pencils outside, you can come in and be guest of Elvis and the Colonel.
So many people know that I was the one who broke the story about Elvis really going to get married to Priscilla, and this time it wasn't a joke. I noticed that people were coming in and out, and the Memphis Mafia had new shirts, new suits, ties, things that I had never seen before them do in such a flurry. And I said to one of my staff members, I said, this is the weekend he's going to get married. I just know it. And the next thing I knew is that there was a lot of flurry at the house in Palm Springs.
I believe that she broke the story that they were going to be married. I know that when they did get married, she was camped out in Palm Springs because her information, Colonel was good at getting a lot of misinformation out. So Rona Barrett, I think, was in Palm Springs during the wedding, thinking she was going to get an exclusive there.
A week later, Elvis and Prescilla held a second ceremony in Memphis for their family and friends to attend. The movies and the music were on hold, and Mr. and Mrs. Presley tried as best they could to lead a normal marriage.
Elvis had taken he and Priscilla into riding horses a lot. And you only had like 13 acres there at Graceland. And they would ride around all of it. So he started looking for a place. And they found this place just across the state line down there. It was 165 acres. And this guy was wanting to sell it. And Elvis bought it so he could have his horses down there and have 165 acres to ride on. But that was where we had an awful lot of fun. Because it was out down there. Elvis loved to get out. He'd wear a big old jacket, a Western jacket, and his cowboy hat.
It had a beautiful lake with a huge white cross on it over the lake. And it was with red Santa Gertrudis cows all over, you know, the ranch. Had a little house there.
There was a little house, beautiful little cottage that had been in some magazines. Not very big, but really nice, looked great on the property. And that's where Elvis and Priscilla stayed originally. And then he bought trailers for the rest of us guys.
Elvis had bought all the guys' trailers and had put cement slabs from beyond out there all along the fence, and he bought himself a trailer and one for his grandmother. And Alan Fortis, who he made like kind of foreman of the ranch, he let him and his wife live in that 100-year-old house that had been restored and everything. He lived in a trailer. That's where Lisa Marie was conceived.
If you see a lot of pictures during that period of time, you'll see they're very happy, they're smiling, they're having a good time. And then when she became pregnant, that even made it better, because Elvis loved animals and kids. He loved kids, and he just adored them, because I knew when I had my two daughters, he was very close to them. And so he was happy. I mean, he was smiling all the time, you know, they were having a great time. We had the ranch in Mississippi, and it was like a whole new little group thing happening.
She seemed to develop more of a personality as she got older. But when I knew her, she was just a young lady, just as a matter of fact, even I knew her before she married Elvis, and I knew her after the wedding. We were invited to the wedding reception. And she seemed to develop after the wedding much more. So she was just a young girl before that, young, pretty girl.
When Elvis and Priscilla were expecting, they had me bring Vernon Scott out and broke the news. So told him so he could break the news and release the story.
But the honeymoon had to end sometime. Just when Elvis was finally enjoying his new quiet life on the ranch, Hollywood called, and he reluctantly returned to the studios to begin yet another film.
Elvis is in trouble.
I think, number one, he didn't want to go back and do a mediocre movie, and that's what was next online. He was enjoying being there with everybody. He had just gotten married. Elvis and Priscilla were very happy at this time. And he wasn't ready to go back, and then the pressure started about, you know, time to go to work, time to, you know, get back to Hollywood.
During Priscilla's 7th month of pregnancy, apparently from out of nowhere, Elvis suggested a trial separation. He packed some things and left, only to return 2 days later with an apology. His films were now laughably being booked as second features. It was a long, dark cloud that was only lifted by the birth of Lisa Marie on February 1st, 1968, 9 months to the very day of their wedding.
I never will forget when we was going to the hospital when she felt she had to go and have the baby. And Jerry Schilling, I said, "Now, Jerry, where are we going?" He said, "Methodist Hospital." I said, "No, Jerry, Baptist." He said, "Charlie, I swear," I said, "Jerry, let me be wrong. You drive to the Baptist Hospital."
We had done a trial run to the Methodist Hospital. Nobody told me anything different. Somehow, through some meeting, they changed to the Baptist Hospital. So I'm driving to the Methodist Hospital, and Charlie's sitting beside me, and Charlie said, "No, it's the Baptist." I said, "Charlie, I did the trial run. You weren't even here." And then Elvis said, "No, Jerry, I forgot to tell you, we changed it."
And then on the way there to the hospital, we had a phone in the car. And was Johnny with me? I can't remember. But whoever there, I said, "Call Joe." And so called Joe. He was in Los Angeles.
I got a phone call when I heard Priscilla was on the way to the hospital to have Lisa Marie. So I forgot who called me, it was either Jerry or Charlie. I said, "Tell her to hold on till I get there." So I got a first plane out of there. I flew from California to Memphis, and somebody picked me up at the airport and took me right to the hospital, and I got there before Lisa Marie was born. So she did hold out for me. She kept her legs crossed.
Elvis is this big iconic figure to everybody, and you know, to us guys and family and whatever. I mean, here's a guy that we sit in the waiting room with while he's waiting for the birth of his daughter. Here's the guy we laughed with, we cried with. We were all like brothers, you know.
When Lisa Marie was born, it was a very special time for all of us, because here, this little baby was going to be coming home to Graceland in a little while. I mean, we'd all been waiting for this special moment. Elvis and Priscilla's first little baby, you know.
Well, after Elvis and Priscilla did get married, things changed a little bit. And after Lisa was born, this has been talked about before, but I think Elvis had this thing about the Oedipus complex or something like that, or I don't know what it is. It's like they're making love to their mother type thing. And I mean, I can't say for sure, but that's my feeling. I think their passionate life together wasn't as well as it was before that Lisa was born. I mean, that hurt the relationship, very much so.
Elvis soon realized that, although he was a superstar, a husband, and now a father, he was also going broke. He sold the Circle G Ranch, returned to Hollywood, and filmed what would be the last of his movies.
When you get right down to the nitty-gritty, isn't it a pity that in this big city, not a one little bitty made a Latin admit could have been a little bit wrong.
I remember him bringing a picture of Priscilla and the baby, and she was on the floor with the baby. She was kind of on her side like this, and the baby was laying right in front of her. And I remember Lisa didn't have any clothes on. It was just a beautiful mother and daughter picture. And I couldn't get over how beautiful Priscilla was, because I'd always seen her with the big hairdos, and her hair was just straight and loose. And she was absolutely stunning. She was as beautiful as he was handsome. And I thought, what a couple they make. She never came to the set, however. I asked him one day, I said, "Does Priscilla ever visit?" And he said no.
He expected her to, you know, be locked up within the gates of Graceland while he went out and cavorted around the world. And, you know, she became, you know, like many women in the 1960s and 1970s, more assured, more independent, fiercely independent, and found out she could do some things on her own. She's a pretty savvy businesswoman in her own right.
Priscilla enrolled in dance classes in Los Angeles, where she fell into a brief affair with her teacher. She was crying out for attention, but Elvis was too far away to hear.
We were hearing little rumors around that Priscilla was dating her dance instructor. And I mean, we couldn't believe it. A lot of the guys, that's not true, that's just stories and all that. But we didn't talk about it too much, because when I heard it was happening, I didn't believe it. I said, no, there's no way. And come to find out it was happening.
She wanted to be a star. He found out that she was taking lessons in Graceland. She had a coach coming, giving her lessons, you know. And yeah, she wanted to be a star. You could tell, that's why she married him, to get up there too.
Prescilla's requests for more passion and affection from Elvis slowly became a hindrance to what would be the rebirth of his career.
After Elvis and Prescilla got married, I mean, they were great. They were he was happy, she was happy. We did a lot of vacations, traveled to Hawaii, Colorado, up in the Vale, Aspen. I mean, there was a lot of great times. They enjoyed their company, had a lot of good times together. But then it started to change, and Elvis went back on the road in '69. Before that, we were in Hollywood making movies. We were together a lot more. So it was a little more normal at that time, but then when we hit the road, it completely changed again. Now we were traveling a lot. So we weren't making movies anymore. We were just gone 250 days a year. And that's tough. And we didn't bring any of the wives together on the tours once in a while, but we were too busy. You know, when you're on a tour, we did a show every night, in a different city every night. It's not like you had to drag along the wife and because it's too hectic at the time, so we didn't bring them along.
When the guys were away on tour, the girls were the ones who we did fun things together, whether it was going to the movies or shopping or just hanging out at home, you know, but we did things together and she welcomed all of us. I mean, we were all her friends.
I think the realities of what he's able to do at that time are starting to diminish. For one thing, you know, he has an exhaustive concert schedule, and you have to remember, he's not just playing Vegas, you know, one weekend every 6 months. He's playing it for months at a time. You know, the man is booked.
Are you satisfied with the image you've established?
Well, the image is one thing, and a human being is another, you know, so.
How close does it come? How close does the image come to the man?
It's very hard to live up to an image, I'll put it that way.
Elvis proved himself to be the king of rock and roll once again, but it was difficult to return to the lifestyle of loving husband and humble father when the crowds were again shouting his name.
Oh, he's a wonderful father. But, you know, you also have to realize that his lifestyle was not conducive to having children. You know, he was up all night and slept all day, so he'd play with her late in the afternoon. He was a great father. He lavished her with fur coats and stuff when she was like 3. But he loved her. He did. He really loved his daughter.
She had some children her own age to play with. And Elvis slept all day. And she just more or less ran them wild.
Lisa could get by with stuff that nobody else could get by with. And you know, she's kind of got that personality like her dad.
Things were getting tough. We were always traveling all the time. We were off the road. When we got back home, we'd all take off. All the guys, we'd go to Palm Springs. We said we got to get away. We were working hard and left obviously Prescilla, and she would be home. They knew that we were out fooling around. My ex-wife, all the other guys' wives and girlfriends. I mean, we were a wild bunch of young guys with this life we were leading, and it was getting to her. She got a little more held back, and they had more fights, but not out in front of us. I think she had too much respect for Elvis to get in a big fight in front of the guys. So, I mean, I did hear some screaming and yelling in the bedroom once in a while. Couldn't hear completely what it was about, but I'm sure it was about not giving her enough time and attention for her that she deserved.
Elvis loved Prescilla very much at one time, but Elvis would grow out of love. He just wasn't able to commit to one woman. It wasn't in him to be committed in the way a father and a husband should be to a one woman, you know, that he's married to. It wasn't that he did it because he was cocky or conceited, or it's just the way he was. It's just the way he was.
That's a tough life, and you know, and us being around, all the guys around all the time, his buddies, and I mean, it's not a way to have a good married life. Somebody there all the time, though intimate times for themselves, not that often. There was times that, you know, just the two of them would be around, but it changed. It got harder for her.
Between tours, Elvis and Prescilla tried working their problems out. She knew Elvis was having affairs on the road, but he would never admit to it. They decided to take a vacation, hoping to patch things up, but the events that unraveled from there would eventually sour the rest of their marriage.
We were on a vacation in Hawaii one time, Elvis, Prescilla, and all of us, and there was a karate tournament going on in Hawaii. Ed Parker was having this karate tournament over there, and we went to see this thing because Elvis was very much into karate at the time. And there was a fighter in this tournament. His name was Mike Stone. Great fighter. Probably one of the best karate people there ever was. I mean, he was great, he was fast, he was quick. Elvis thought he was wonderful, and we all did. So we said hello to him, met him after the show, and that was it. But then we were in Las Vegas, Elvis was performing there, and Phil Spector, the big Hollywood producer, music producer, came to see Elvis' show in Vegas. And he came backstage, and just so happened, his bodyguard happened to be Mike Stone, the karate guy that we saw in Hawaii. And Elvis was more interested in Mike Stone than he was in Phil Spector, so they started talking, you know, and talking about karate, and Mike said, I'm teaching karate in Los Angeles and all that. And he said, Prescilla, you should take karate from this guy. He's great. So that's what really happened. She started taking karate lessons from Mike Stone in Los Angeles when we were out of town. And as time went on, little by little, they started dating on the side, naturally. And I didn't know about, nobody knew about, and then the rumors were starting to get around. And somebody said something to me about, did you know that Prescilla and Mike are dating? I said, no, come on, no way. That wouldn't happen. I mean, I know Prescilla, she would never do that. And lo and behold, later on we find out that she is.
In fact, Red told him when Prescilla told him that she was seeing someone else. And Elvis went crazy, man, screaming and yelling, and Red said, what, Elvis, that's what you said you wanted, man. You said you wish you'd go out and find someone else and kind of leave you alone to do your thing. Yeah, not that way, Red. I didn't mean it that way.
I mean, what's a man gonna say? His wife runs off with somebody. He's living a double standard, like anyone in his position would then and still does now. Not maybe as much, but you know, it was okay for him to be with anybody and everybody that he felt like being with, but when she became independent and fell in love with someone else, it killed him.
Priscilla was upset, you know, that Elvis was never home, out running around the country and dating different women, and she confronted Elvis with it. She told Elvis about it. She came to Las Vegas, and we were performing there, and took Elvis into the room, and they talked, and she told him about it. She says, I'm dating Mike Stone, and I want a divorce.
When it ended, Elvis was okay with that. He really was. But he wasn't okay with it being Mike Stone. And he felt double-crossed by this guy to do this. More than at Priscilla, he felt this guy, he wanted this guy dead. At one time, he wanted him dead. He tried to convince me to kill him. And he told Red to get a hitman to kill him when I wouldn't go do it.
Red went in and told us, okay, I found somebody to do this. And Elvis thought about it and said, okay, well, I'll let you know. Because he would have never done that. I mean, Elvis was mad and upset, but he would never have somebody killed. So it never happened.
Priscilla and Lisa Marie permanently moved into their Los Angeles house, where she continued to date Mike Stone during his divorce from his current wife. Elvis, although saddened and heartbroken, continued on with his touring, falling deeper and deeper into the arms of prescribed drugs and other lovers.
He had been deeply, deeply hurt by what he perceived as Priscilla's betrayal of him, and having another man involved was all the more painful. It would have been one thing if she had said, I don't like your lifestyle, but having another man involved was tremendously destructive to his ego and to his perception of relationships and marriage.
When I heard Priscilla was divorcing Elvis, I could understand it completely. You have to realize there's a girl that gets married to Elvis and she's living in a house with 8 other guys, with their wives, with their girlfriends. It's not conducive to a happy life.
Elvis and Priscilla never led a normal life. Elvis never led a normal life, I'll put it that way. A few times alone together, you know, maybe in Palm Springs, you know, different times, but not enough to be a normal marriage by any means whatsoever. Somebody was always around, and that is a tough situation.
When Elvis and Priscilla parted, it was rough. It hit him very hard. It took a while for the dust to settle, and when it did, he said, look, I love Priscilla. I respect her. It took me a long time to realize we just weren't soulmates. But thank God we were together because we had Lisa, and I taught Priscilla a lot. And we were together, and we're not anymore.
He would say that he didn't love her, that he kind of made a promise when she was very young, and he kept his promises, and so he married her. And but yet he had a certain sense of ownership that I think, you know, destroyed him. And the fact that she would go on without him, his ego could not handle that. So he had mixed feelings. I mean, I don't know that he was honest with himself if he was saying that he didn't love her, you know, but he did say that.
I think he loved Priscilla, and he always found girls that looked like her afterwards. But I don't think marriage was the right thing for Elvis. You know, he loved women too much.
Even though Elvis and Priscilla rekindled their friendship some time after, the love they once shared for one another had truly ended. Elvis filed for a divorce on January 8th, his birthday. It was the gift that kept on giving, as you'll hear in this live performance from 1974.
The thing I'm trying to get across is we're the very best of friends, and we always have been. Our divorce came about not because of another man or another woman, but because of the circumstances involving my career. And it was just an agreement that I didn't think it was fair to her. So therefore, we just made an agreement to always be friends and be close and care. Well, after that, I got her a mink coat. She got me, listen to this, tonight, $42,000 white Rolls Royce. That's the type of relationship that we have, you know, and it's not a bad setup, is it, fellas?
Elvis and Priscilla had a love for each other after it was over with. But he certainly didn't want to go back with her once he had gone through what he went through and got it over with. He didn't want to go back with her, and she didn't want to come back with him. She was out there doing her life.
I know that he wanted very much to have a special marriage. He had an idealistic view of what his marriage would be like. And he very much wanted to have a woman who was his wife, who was a virgin, who was just in love with him. When his marriage failed and that family fell apart and his child, you know, wasn't with him all the time anymore, I think that really took a lot of his steam away.
I don't know Priscilla, but I just, from the things that I watched and I perceived about this girl, I think it would have been nice if he would have stayed with her. I don't know what their problem was, but I could have settled it. I would have called her Mademoiselle Gouletouche, and he would just, everything would have been fine.
Elvis immersed himself in his concerts, substituting his adoring audience for the loss of his marriage. Priscilla continued raising Lisa Marie in Los Angeles, introducing her to a lifestyle that didn't primarily consist of overindulgence and pampering. Lisa alternated between the sane and the surreal by living with Priscilla, then staying with Elvis.
Lisa Marie, she was a doll, but she was, she could maneuver us pretty well because she was so cute. She walked on her tippy toes, and she would come into our dressing room and hang out, and we formed a little club, and she was our treasurer, and we put a quarter in at every meeting, and she would hold the money, and we'd never see it again.
In the early afternoon of August the 16th, 1977, as Lisa Marie waited for her father to awaken to say goodbye, a horrifying discovery was made. Elvis Aaron Presley, at the age of 42, was found dead in his Graceland bathroom. Elvis Presley left his father Vernon to act as executor of his estate until Lisa Marie reached the age of 25. Vernon, while in ill health, made a surprising decision that would forever alter the course of the Elvis Presley estate. He chose Priscilla to succeed him as executor and handed over the entire Presley fortune to her. When Elvis died, a new Priscilla was born.
Were it not for Priscilla Presley, for all we know, Graceland would have been torn down by now. You know, and all that Elvis memorabilia, you know, reflecting his life and times. For all we know, parts of Graceland would be offered on eBay or something. Instead, you know, she turned it into a thriving, you know, it's a tourist mecca. And in many ways, I see Graceland as a symbol of an astounding American success story.
Priscilla's business sense was only part of her blossoming rebirth. After trying her hand at modeling, she ventured into acting, something she'd always wanted to do. The television show Dallas would be her start.
Everyone should have a friend like you.
After 5 years in television came Priscilla's film debut in the blockbuster Naked Gun.
I like cops.
All right.
How hot and wet do you like it?
The Naked Gun, from the files of Police Squad.
It may have been destiny that brought Elvis and Priscilla together in 1958, and it may have been fate that divided them in 1973. But the absolute love they shared for one another will forever reunite them in the hearts of millions for eternity.